is everyone? Welcome back to my studying. Today I will be reviewing third book in the Verus series, Taken. As the last novel ended, Alex was warned that after the events of the last book, he will be approached by many people because he brought down a very powerful mage. And that certainly turned out to be true. His investigative talents are very in demand, and everyone, especially on the more powerful side in the magical families, is trying to hire him. And one of these people is an heiress of a powerful family that wants him to run a security service for a tournament for apprentices, for magical students. And on the backdrop of that, a conspiracy is unfolding. Apparently, apprentices have started to vanish without a trace. Firstly, it seems to be light apprentices, but turns out even dark apprentices are disappearing, and there are no witnesses, no evidence, no suspects, no leads, nothing. And Alex gets involved by saving one apprentice's life, and a very minor character that we saw at Luna's entrance ceremony in previous books, and now she and her friend Verium are sort of central side characters in this book. What I expected. Let's first cover what I expected. Allow me to be cheeky, but I expected at least a brief descriptor of how Alex looks like. I understand that the writing is in first person point of view, but you could do it via another character referencing his looks, but maybe it's a running joke. I don't know. It's not a flaw, but it's just something that I expected at this point. I guess I expected that the magical school aspect of the previous book will continue, and it did, with a magical tournament of all things. And I also at least expected the return of the air elemental that Alex released, but no such thing happened. What I got a quasi-generational conspiracy with a haunted vampire mansion in the middle of a magical school tournament. Did not expect that, not in that way. But let's see what I liked about this sequel. Well, I continue to enjoy characterization. Verium and Anne are genuinely well-realized characters. And despite their flaws, or because of their flaws, for example, Verium has some very pronounced anger issues, and they feel like real people. And Fire Mage being temperamental is a very simple but very effective storytelling trick. We know Cinder. Cinder is very impulsive, but that doesn't make him stupid. Neither is Verium. Character traits reflecting character powers is something that might come off as cheap, but I don't think it does. I think most of the time, and not just talking about Alex Verus series, that sort of thing works, because characters that rely on destructive powers tend to confront things and people differently from people who don't have offensive capabilities. Like Alex. Alex is a survivor. He's very careful. He has to rely on his other skills, not magical skills. And as a result, he learned to be more tactful, more diplomatic, more crafty, as opposed to people like Varian who can sort out their problems by doing this. Makes sense. I also like that investigation aspect is carefully thought out. There is a clear method and logic to Alex's actions, even though his judgment isn't always correct. It's not like he's Batman. He's not 100% right all of the time. But what he does is he lowers the margin of error as low as he can. What I didn't care for? Well, three things. I don't think that Luna's character change, not even development, I'm going to call it change, was super smooth. It almost felt to me like a retcon because she transformed into a snarky, back talking extrovert very quickly, almost too quickly, and off screen. That or off page rather, in between books 2 and 3. That's what bothers me. If it happened gradually through the book, sure, but we find her at the beginning of this book, and she's just like a completely different person almost. I don't know what's that about. Another thing that I didn't like so much is, well, plotting. For the amount of build-up, the resolution was actually quite sparse and sudden. That's what bothered me. I mean, maybe the repercussions of what happened will be felt in later books, but it almost felt like a status quo return, almost. And lastly, the author is very fond of, as you know, infodumps. Question marks. Oh, well, rather. Yeah, I mean, these are short books, and even if you're taking a break in between them, if you're not binging them, the world building is not that dense. It doesn't require all that retelling or just reiterating a certain aspect of magical society. We don't need that kind of padding. I don't know why the author keeps doing that. Is it an editorial sort of advice, or I don't know. It bothers me honestly. I think it pads out unnecessarily. And let's move on to predictions for book 4, which I am starting as of the moment of this recording. Well, I'll make a very simple prediction, which is since, there is an age difference that I'm not too sure about, that I agree with, but it looks like it will only be a matter of time before Anne and Alex end up together. And I guess it will happen in the next book. And I will also predict that the past of Alex will continue to bite him in the back. Namely Richard. I think Richard will reappear sooner than later. Verdict. Well, I liked this book slightly less than the previous one, but the series is still very much enjoyable for me. What saves me and what will always save any book for me are the characters, the characterization. Characters overshadow the somewhat messy plot. I don't think that the middle of the book was all that straightforward as it could have been, but I'll continue to read it and enjoy it, hopefully. In my experience with urban fantasy books, for whatever reason, you can tell if a series will maintain its quality around book 3 or 4. Usually they stumble around book 3 or 4. And my theory is, if you have an urban fantasy book that you sell, the publishers often require that you sell them a few manuscripts in advance with urban fantasy books, not epic fantasies, not with big tomes. So usually people will have all this time to write a trilogy or a quadrilogy of books, and they will sell them, and they will be published in close relation to each other. But then there will be a time where they have to write a continuation, and instead of a sophomore slump that happens to big books, they will have a sophomore slump around book 5 or 4. Since an urban fantasy book is like 300 pages at most, which is nothing. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you are all safe and sound. And if you have any comments about the series, please comment below. See you next time. Bye-bye.